Multiple world record lifts, the ITA report is here, and the moment we've all been waiting for. The Weightlifting House Virus Limited Drop Collab of the Year is now finally here. So this has been an extremely long time in coming, and I know that a lot of people out there are very excited for this release. So here's how we're going to do it. For the next 48 hours, these Virus Weightlifting Hab Collab leggings are going to be available at weightliftinghouse.com. After that 48-hour period, we're going to go back, we're going to check to see if we have any left. If we do, which I'll be honest, there's a very good chance we won't, we'll put them back up on the store a week later. Now, we only actually have 500 pairs of these, which may sound like a few, but it's really not when we have so many people watching and following us across all these different platforms. Plus, the Patreon fans have already taken out a large chunk of those initial 500 pairs. So I would just model them for you, obviously, because I look great in that, and no one has left any horrible comments about the size of my calves when I have worn them. But instead, I figured I would just show you a pair right here on the screen. So these are the men's. The men's are 3/4, women's are full length. We got Weightlifting House on the front left, Virus on the front right. Weightlifting House written down the, I guess, where your anterior tibialis is, front of the shin. And then on the back, the nice collab, Virus, Weightlifting House also. These things are absolutely incredible. If you've ever worn Virus, you know that the quality of these is just sensational. I basically wear exclusively Virus, have done for the last, 3 years on my lower half, and then it's always Weightlifting House on the upper half. So like I said, next 48 hours, these are available. There's a link down below. They're going to sell out quick. If you want a pair of weightlifting history, two of the great brands of weightlifting, then this is your time. Let's get on with the show. Okay, so I want to do a bit of a throwback type news show episode. There's been a lot of just news, drugs, things going on in the IWF, and there is more of that, but I want to go a little bit back to how it used to be on the news show, how it was for the first few years of the Weightlifting House news show. And let's just start with some lifts, and let's go through some of the big lifts that have happened from around the world in training halls, in competitions, gyms, garages, with a proper people's lift section at the end. And in between those, the major lifts and then the people's lifts, I'll do some news show. There are timestamps down below, so if you just want to skip to what's going on in the IWF, you can, but I imagine most of you want to learn about this 18 kilo world record. So let's kick it off with that. Let's not clickbait this video and then not show you until the end. So I'll show you what it is straight away. And then I guess to somewhat clickbait you to the end, we actually have a 209 kilo hang power clean in the people's lift section at the end. That is 209 kilo hang power clean at the end. So we're going to kick off with Antonino Pizzolato. We all know Antonino. He's medaled at the World Championships back in, 2017 as an 85. He's been around the block for a while. He's actually still pretty young, but he's been on the international scene for a while. And this Italian 81 kilo lifter is, in my opinion, the only person who poses a real threat to Liu Xiaoxun, the guy who I think is everybody's favorite to win the Olympic Games in 1 month's time. Now, there are a few things that Antonino Pizzolato has just done which we need to talk about because they are blooming insane. The first is that he competed at the All-Star Game FIPE 2021, FIPE, which I think is Federazione Italian PE. I'm not sure what the PE, Performance Education, something like that. But FIPE 2021, he went 160, 165, 167. That 167, the 165 I believe is a competition record. The 167 certainly is. That's now just 8 kilos under the world record, which may seem like a lot, but there is no one who's going to the Olympics other than Liu who can snatch over 170 in competition. So this is now the closest. In the clean and jerk, Antonino then went 205, which is huge. It's only 2 kilos under the world record. We saw him do 206 kilos in Moscow at the European Championships. When was that? A couple of months ago. So he is way up there in terms of the clean and jerk. And then the reason I think he genuinely has a chance at beating Liu Xiaoxun, should Liu Xiaoxun miss a couple of lifts and Antonino Pizzolato go 6 for 6, it's because he just hit a 225 kilo jerk. The world record is 207 kilos. That's 18 kilos over the world record for a jerk. And it didn't look particularly bad. Now, in terms of the history of this sort of weight class in jerks, the world record in the old 77 was 214 from Rahimov. Before that was 210 from Oleg Perepechenov from Russia. way back in the day in the 80s when, it was a different time in terms of testing. I mean, if you guys think it's bad now, it was really, really bad back in the 80s. There were sort of, I think Zlatev was it 225 at 82? So that's like, that's crazy. But this is the same kind of weight. I know he didn't clean it first and he can't clean it, but this is almost 80s Bulgaria style weights. In comparison to some of the great other weightlifters of the day, I mean, Liu Xiaozhen recently mentioned on an interview, I think it was with the Squat Jerk journalist, that his best ever jerk was 220 kilos from the rack. This is even more than Liu Xiaozhen. To then sort of go along with these incredible competition lifts, the 167, the 205, the 206, the 225, we then saw Antonino Pizzolato back squat 260 for a double, which is something we only really see. I mean, Liu's done a couple of doubles at 260 recently, and then something that I don't think Liu Xiaozhen can do, a 250 kilo front squat double after a 240 kilo front squat double. Antonino Pizzolato is unbelievably strong. He has realized that there is a gap for him. He's realized that if he can just pull ahead of the rest, which he's done, then if Liu Xiaozhen doesn't perform, he is the gold medal winner. Enough solid 81 kilo lifters are either now behind him or not going to Tokyo. This is Antonino's to take should Liu not perform quite right. Okay, let's move on. Next, I want to talk about Nina Sterckx from Belgium. She's been a 55 kilo weightlifter for a while. She qualified for Tokyo, however, as a 49. And she just hit a 110 kilo clean and jerk in competition. And I kind of wanted to go back and look at how strong is this compared to her former self. And I got really confused because when I went on her Instagram and looked at what are her personal records as a 49, in the clean and jerk, it's something really quite low. As a 49, she's done 83.93. And so I was looking at this 110 and I was like, well, she's done that as a 55 and she's snatched 90 as a 55, but she can't now go to Tokyo and drop all the way down to 93. And it turns out she did this 110 weighing just 51. So she's managed to cut 4 kilos and she's maintained that level of strength, which is just phenomenal. And I cannot imagine the level of excitement when you get selected for your first Olympic Games, you cut weight and you stay just as strong and realize how competitive you are. I mean, what did we see from Jordan De La Cruz? She did 89.111, 200 total, Pan-American record, and that ranks her at number 2 at the Olympic Games in the 49s. Nina Sterckx is looking like she could medal at the Olympics. Okay, let's now move over to the big man himself, Lasha Talakhadze from Georgia. There's always something to talk about with Lasha, and I did a video specifically on him last week. I put some videos of his on the news show last week, but he's done some other things. He hasn't snatched 225 again, he's not clean jerk 270 again, but he's still done some things which require mentioning. The first is he did a real double at 210 kilos. Now, we've all seen him do 2 singles at 210 kilos. In fact, we even saw him last week do 3 singles at 215 kilos, which is insane. But I watched him in Pattaya, Thailand 2019. With my own eyes, I was almost as close to him as I am this camera that's filming me right now. And I watched him do 210 kilos for a cluster double. You can't really call it a double, but it wasn't 2 singles. He snatched it, he turned around, he walked to the wall, he placed his hand on the wall, he turned around and he went straight back to the bar, strapped up and lifted it. The whole thing was over in 25 to 30 seconds from start to finish. He just did a real 210 kilo double. A catch it, he's got it overhead, he knows it's there, lets it go down in front, snatches it again. And he does this every time he does a double, by the way. He drops that first one out in front. It's a made lift. He just knows that he doesn't need to waste energy on the stand. He then did something that I thought was particularly impressive. We have seen him do some heavy snatch balances, but a 220 kilo snatch balance double. This is more than we've ever seen anyone other than him snatch, and he doubles it. And what was so interesting, I thought, was the ease with which he held it overhead. There was no wobbling, there was no catching it in the bottom and then shifting around, hips move forward laterally. Sometimes when you stand in overhead squat position, you almost get pinned halfway up, the hips shoot back, and it's a bit of a grind, and then you come back through and it's easy. Even though it's only an overhead squat, it still kind of feels hard sometimes. There's none of that. He is just strong, solid, he's rigid through and through. The transfer of force from the lower part of his body through his torso to the upper part is incredible. He loses no strength kind of out the sides, kind of like what these wrist straps do. No, this was not, I didn't mean to do that. That was just a nice little plug I got in there. they're so strong you don't lose force out the sides. This episode is sponsored by the wrist straps. But 220 snatch balance for a double is insane. The most I've ever heard of, 240 kilos. Shane Hammond told me that he did that in his training. Also, if you ever want to see Lasha miss, because we have rarely seen that, we did see him miss a 220 attempt at the 2017 European Championships. Hopefully that's playing right now so you can see it. But he missed again. He went for a 215 kilo real double, and he missed the second rep. Next, we have another world record. This obviously unofficial, but still. Chen from Taiwan just hit a 187 kilo snatch. He's a 96 kilo weightlifter. So the world record is obviously 186, set by Strab Mradi. There were now an exciting number of 96ers who can all snatch 180 or more, several of whom who will be at the Olympic Games in less than a month. So, I mean, it's going to be an incredible category. But Chen, who's not going to be in Tokyo because he's actually not qualified enough points, he just snatched 187. And it was gritty and filthy, and, he pulled on it and he snuck under, and it wasn't the most beautiful lift, but it showed a lot of passion. He'd been trying for it for a long time. His clean and jerk really doesn't kind of match anywhere near that world record standard, but his snatch now has surpassed it. So he's not going to Tokyo, but he's basically the next in line for the Asian spot. The Asian continental slot, for those outside of the top 8, went to Bekdulot Razulbekov from Kyrgyzstan. If he hadn't been in that slot, then it would have gone to Chen. Now I want to move on to another world record attempt. Well, another unofficial world record make. This time, Ruslan Nurudinov from Uzbekistan, the world record holder in the 109 kilo category for the clean and jerk, who hit, obviously, as you guys know, 241 at the Asian Championships. Hopefully we're playing that. That was one of the most incredible battles I've ever seen in that 109 kilo category. That 109 category now, this is how exciting it is. And we're only going to see 2 of these 3 people I'm about to mention in Tokyo, but still. The 3 world records in the snatch, clean and jerk total are held by 3 different people. Yang Zhe, Ruslan Nurudinov, Simon Martirosyan. In fact, no, we're only going to see one of those weightlifters, but we're going to see someone who's in and amongst all of those numbers in Akbar Jurayev, who will be there competing against Simon Martirosyan. It's going to be incredible. But Ruslan Nurudinov just hit 245 kilos. That is 4 kilos over his own world record. He did that in training 5-6 years ago as well, I remember seeing. But it's a huge lift, so very exciting things to come from Nurudinov. Next we have Hidilyn Diaz, 55 kilo Hidilyn Diaz, filmed by I'm Julius, who is her partner and an amazing sort of filmer, photographer, and coach as well. And she just hit a 115 kilo clean and jerk that looked so easy, so technically sound. She's certainly one of the athletes who is looking to medal. Quite what medal she ends up taking, I don't know, but she's got a very good shot at basically any medal, so long as she goes and hits what she needs to on that day. Or hits what she can on that day, I should say. And then finally, I just want to do a few lifts from the USA. In fact, 2, which I haven't written down, which just popped into my mind, which I really should have mentioned. Wes Kitt's 175 snatch at 109. It's 5 kilos under his best, and it looked great. Nice to see him in such good shape this close to Tokyo. Secondly, Nathan Damron 170 snatch. Great lift. I think it's 5 kilos under the American record for that weight category. I think the American record is stupidly high and no one's yet hit it, but a wonderful lift from Nathan once again. The people that I had written down, we have CJ Cummings, who will be in Tokyo as well, 73 kilo. He just hit 190 for a front squat plus jerk plus overhead squat. World record is 198. His personal record in competition is 194. He's only 4 kilos under the world record from Shiziong, which is incredible. And he just hit 4 kilos under that, 190 for front squat, jerk, overhead squat, which is just amazing. Then we have Kate Nye, 71 kilo 2019 world champion, who'll be at the Olympics as an 81 kilo weightlifter. She just snatched 114 kilos for a personal record. I'm so pleased to see this. Kate Nye has been a friend of the podcast, a friend of Weightlifting House for a long time. I think I maybe did the first ever interview with her that she ever did way back in 2018. She's been on the podcast. She's been at Coaches Only maybe 5 times in total since. And she's had a tough year and a half, tough 18 months. Switched coaches to Parent Grace. So she's now with Spencer Arnold and the amazing team that they have over there. And she's working a little bit more on speed, it seems, a little bit more technical, a little bit less kind of LSUS 10-5-3 style training, and finally she's kind of breaking through into uncharted territory, and I'm so pleased this close to the Olympics. So 114 snatch PR, She snatched 112 back at 2019 Worlds. A 150 kilo jerk PR, which is 13 kilos more than her competition record. I think she's done 137. A 135 kilo clean plus dip plus jerk, which again 2 kilos under competition record. So she's in phenomenal shape. She'll be competing at American Championships, American Nationals this weekend, 2 days after this video comes out. So check that out. Next, also going to be at the American Nationals, we have Matty Rogers, who is also on an absolute tear. She just snatched 115 kilos off the blocks. No idea if that had any relation to being 1 kilo over Kate Knight. I don't know if that was a purposeful thing. I wouldn't be surprised if it was. We all do it. If someone I know snatches 100, I snatch 101. It's just kind of how it works. So I wouldn't be surprised if she used that as some kind of motivation, but an amazing lift. It's 4 kilos over her competition record of 111 that she hit at the 2021 Pan American Champs Pan American record. Also, she beat Jessie Stamo there, who's going to be our next person. But also, Matty Rogers also hit 148 jerk very casually. The whole thing was casual. It was amazing. And then finally from the USA, Jessie Stamo, 110 kilos in the snatch. She has this unreal bottom position where she kind of does the Krastev, as I like to call it, the Antonino Krastev, 80s Bulgarian weightlifter, the first man to snatch 216 kilos. And he used to do this thing in the bottom position where to get deeper, he would almost his spine would go from extension into flexion. He'd round under a little bit so that he'd get an extra maybe inch lower. He'd also sort of depress here. She doesn't do that so much, but Jessie does this amazing thing where she gets low and then she rounds to tuck under to get the extra inch. Insane. She's going to be competing at American Nationals also. Make sure you check it out. And that is it from the big lifts. Let's talk some IWF news now, because there have been a few really interesting things that have happened, including the final slots have been allocated for the Olympic Games. The Tripartite Commission has announced who else will be going to Tokyo. Let's go through them. So we've had an extremely long process of deciding who's going to be going to the Olympics, and it is now nearly totally complete. There are a few changes and additions this week. So, Sabine Kustera from Germany moved up into a slot in the women's 59 kilo category after Konstantina Bentelli from Greece was suspended nationally for a suspected anti-doping offence. And then the Tripartite Commission awarded places to several athletes. These athletes were Mohamed Hamada, the first Palestinian weightlifter to compete at the Olympic Games. Talat Talib, the impressive 21-year-old weightlifter from Pakistan, who's very fast, who, by the way, a while ago, I posted a video of his, reposted on Weightlifting House, and people messaged me. He had cut out the middle few frames of him going under the bar to make himself look faster. He doesn't need to do that. He's very fast. He's very talented anyway. 3, Yasmin Zamet Stevens from Malta. I think she's a bit of a crowd favorite, got an enormous following on Instagram. Very, very nice person. I don't know her particularly well, but have spoken to her briefly. Very pleased to see her make the team. 4, we have Nancy Aboke from Nauru. I don't know almost anything about Nancy Aboke, so excited to see her. 5, we have Quinini Manuma from Tonga. Similarly, don't know a whole lot. 6, Amur Al-Kanjara from Oman. 7, Matthew Lidman from Australia. And then finally, Tanuma Philly Jungblut from American Samoa. Those are the 8 weightlifters who will be going to Tokyo through the Tripart Commission. It's interesting that there haven't been any African weightlifters selected in the Tripart Commission. I'm not sure why. I can only assume that there weren't enough weightlifters from Africa who had qualified, had done the required number of competitions in the required number of qualification 6-month periods, and so they just weren't eligible. And those who had already had teammates who are in certain categories, and so you can't have 2 athletes from the same country in a category. But I really thought a lot of these slots were going to go to the continent of Africa, and they weren't. And I think that's a real shame, because it does kind of lose part of what the Olympics is, which is, of course, performance, but also inclusion from around the world. And then also, let's not finish this, because there are actually a few new things that have happened. So some athletes also gain places through the reallocation system, which is when a country turns down an athlete or turns down an athlete in that continent. Oh, I'm getting attacked by flies over here. Now it's on the screen as well. If you're not wearing the virus tights, you can use them to swat flies with. They're pretty good at that. When countries get offered slots for athletes and the countries turn them down, there's a reallocation process. We have a few other athletes here, including Elena Silchik, probably Silchik from Moldova, Sarah Fisher from Austria, Erkan Karimaj from Albania, very fast lifter, and then, and I'm so pleased for this, because I thought he was in, and I must have got it wrong, I thought he was in, one of my favourite weightlifters out there from the Netherlands, the largest man I've maybe met outside of Lasha and David Leety, we have Enzo Kawogi. So shout out to all of those athletes. Really awesome stuff. Okay, let's now go through some of the British Championships from last week. So as you guys know, the British Championships was held on the 26th of June. And then as we've mentioned in previous shows, this was a slightly different kind of event to previous years due to restrictions that have been going on around large numbers of people gathering together. Now, I'm not going to go through the whole set of results. You can find them at britishweightlifting.com or bwl.com or whatever the website is, probably one of those two. But I will go through some of the bigger lifts that I saw. So there was an amazing battle in the men's 73 kilo category in which Jonathan Chen narrowly beat Jack Oliver and Michael Farmer from Willpower Weightlifting, one of my favorite gyms in the UK, a really awesome place to go and train. He needed a 161 kilo clean and jerk to take the gold, and he hit that. So Jonathan Chen won. Michael Farmer took third, but I believe he won the snatch, smashed it with a 127, and then Jack Oliver took the silver. On the women's side, Freya Morrow took the gold by an enormous amount in the women's 55 kilo category. She went 86.109, almost hit a 112 kilo clean and jerk. Also, here's a photo of her popping up somewhere wearing the new Virus Weightlifting House collab. So if you want to look like Freya, these are the ones for you. Next, in the men's 81 kilo category, Chris Murray hit 143 kilos in the snatch and a 170 kilo clean and jerk for a solid 313 kilo total. He has done more. I think he hang snatched 50. Could have been 55. No, 50. I think he hang snatched 150, and he can clean and jerk. Yeah, he's going to hit 185. He's probably going to hit 190 soon. So, but still, a tremendous performance. Then Willpower Weightlifting's already mentioned. Willpower Weightlifting's Jordan Sakas made a winning return to the competition platform, a 330 kilo total at 109. He did 147, which I believe was a personal record in the snatch, 183 in the clean and jerk. He jerked 200. His Instagram post was so inspirational. I suggest you go and follow Jordan Sakas, and while you're at it, follow the gym Willpower Weightlifting. Just speaking about how difficult it is at that elite level, and you train hard, and at some point in your life, you're going to hit a plateau, and it doesn't matter how hard you train. Sometimes in spite of how hard you train, things just don't work out, and he hit that wall, and it's been a few years, and that was a competition that he broke through it. So 150, 190 at the next one. Jordan, keep it going. Next, we have Sarah Davies, who continued in her preparation for Tokyo. She snatched 100 kilos. She missed 102. She's hit 101 now twice. She did it in 2019. She did it at the European Champs. She went for 102, but missed, but I'm sure it was close. I didn't actually see the 102. And then she clean and jerked 126, which is very solid for her. 226 kilo total, 4 kilos under her personal record, 230 total from 2021 European Champs. I imagine that if she's able to get in the 230 plus range in Tokyo, that will probably secure a bronze medal, maybe. And she's definitely capable of that. And if you want to check out the full results, like I said, britishweightlifting.com, you can find it there. Let's talk briefly about the ITA report fallout. The ITA, the International Testing Agency. So following the International Testing Agency report that was released last week, which I mentioned briefly on last week's episode, I filmed myself as like a breaking news thing. The president of the European Weightlifting Federation, Hassan Akous, has resigned. Heck yeah. He stands accused of covering up doping test failures from his home country in Turkey. Then, Niku Vlad has also stepped aside, heck yeah, as a member of the IWF Executive Board. The ITA report accused him of covering up doping offences to enable a Romanian athlete to compete at the 2012 Olympic Games. And guys, if you want to know where I get all of this information, I either get it at weightliftinghouse.com, because Dan Kent, our editor here, not our video editor, not Alex, but, you know, co-owner of Weightlifting House, does all of the writing. He either puts it up at weightliftinghouse.com and I see it all there and I just put it on the news show, or for the more in-depth stuff, and I don't know how he does it, Brian Oliver is the legend over at InsideTheGames.biz. That's where you get a lot of this stuff. So between the two, you should be able to stay up to date on everything that I am if you don't have time to watch this show. Okay, let's go back and do a People's Lifts. If you guys are new here, you might not know the People's Lifts. We used to do it. I've done it hundreds of times now on the Weightlifting News Show via podcast or YouTube. If you want to be featured on the People's Lifts, use the hashtag the People's Lifts. The hashtag dried up a little bit recently because I stopped doing the People's Lifts, but it's back. So I'm going to do some, and I picked out 4 people to mention on this week's show. The first, Nicole V. Green. She wrote, "My dream has been casually snatching blue plates, and that dream is slowly becoming reality." She posted a video of a 57 kilo snatch, which obviously on a 15 kilo bar is, it's blues and then little greens, 1 kilo greens, and it looked fantastic. And then she hit 55 kilo as well. And if her dream has been casually snatching blue plates, I would say she has hit her dream and or needs a more difficult dream. She also hit a 95 kilo back squat triple. She trains under Joshua Gibson, the people scientist at Clintonville Barbell. So shout out to Nicole V. Green on Instagram. Next we have, and I told you it was coming, 460 pound hang power clean. That is 209 kilos, I believe. It is 209 kilos for a hang power clean by Kurt Jensen, also known on Instagram as Grip and Rip. For a while, I remember Phil Andrews, the CEO of USA Weightlifting, was trying to recruit Kurt Jensen to be a weightlifter. I guess he's one of the best shot putters in the world, but there are also guys like Ryan Krauser, who's just a freak who, like, you're just not going to beat, maybe. But it looks like Rip and Rip is sticking with the shot put, which is a shame. I'd love to see him turn to weightlifting. I'd love to see throwers turn to weightlifting, honestly. But there's more money and sponsorship and fame in throwing, so I get it. But he hit a 209 kilo hang power clean. The power output on these guys is insane. I've seen videos of Ryan Krauser doing 150 hip power snatches. You know, I've seen 210 kilo power cleans. I've seen 240 behind the neck jerks from throwers. They are freak athletes. Next we have the Danny Amon, TheDannyAmon, the Danny Amon. 108.4 kilo hang clean double. Part of the reason I picked this is, like, who does that? 108.4 kilos. He works in pounds, 239 pounds for a hang clean double. He then came back a few days later and hit another PR for the hang clean double. This time, not at 108.4 kilos, but at 110.7 kilos. 244 pounds. Both PRs, different session, great progress. Shout out to the Danny Amon. And then finally, I'm going to go with Noel Laker 1. Noel-Leka 1. We all love squat jerks, and Noel is a squat jerk master. 192 kilo squat jerk. He trains with my guy Danny Camargo at Ollie Concepts, which is an awesome gym. Danny Camargo is a phenomenal coach. Obviously now coaches Meredith Alwyn, who's just doing crazy things. Such a shame, because Meredith qualified for Tokyo. Again, I've interviewed Meredith a couple times, and I've interviewed Danny a couple of times as well. She actually qualified for Tokyo, but she wasn't in the top 4 in the USA, so she wasn't able to go. But anyway, back to Danny Camargo, Ollie Concepts, Noel Laker 1, 192 kilo squat jerk, and it looked wonderful. He's built for the squat jerk, and he then hit 140 kilo snatch. I don't know what his best snatch is. That's probably close-ish to it. He's probably a 145, 185 guy, and the 192 is a jerk PR, but worth a follow because the guy's freaky strong. That is Noel Laker 1, Noel-Leka, and then the number 1 on Instagram. Guys, that's everything. This Weightlifting House episode is sponsored by the Weightlifting House wrist straps. These things are epic. And of course, guys, for the next 48 hours only, that is Thursday and Friday, the 1st and 2nd of July, the Virus Weightlifting House collab leggings will be available at weightliftinghouse.com. This is a limited drop. We only have 500 pairs, which has been heavily eaten into by the Patreon fans. If you want to ensure that you have a slice of weightlifting history, now is the time. 2 of the greatest brands in weightlifting joint together, literally at the hip. That's quite a nice line. I should have written that in somewhere. Maybe I'll put that on the website. Who knows? I'll put a link for it down below. Make sure you're quick. There are some sizes, obviously, if you're large or smaller, where we only have a handful of them. weightliftinghouse.com to go and grab yours. Appreciate you all tuning in, and I'll catch you all next week.